Even leaders have their baggage, which affects their emotions and can have negative consequences on their performance. Our people and organization deserve leaders who operate at their peak. And this is where neuroscience can come into play and give leaders that advantage. Today, my guest Michele, Molitor, and I discuss topics such as why leaders should care about neuroscience, how you can use neuroscience to your advantage as a leader, advice for leaders who are having a hard time controlling their emotions, how you can release your baggage, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 96, The Neuroscience of Success with Michele, Molitor. Welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy. And thanks for coming out. Thanks for you coming out to listen to this podcast for one reason and one reason only, I am certain, and that is because you want to be a better leader. And guess what? That is why we're here. And that's why we make a dynamic duo of a team, right? My goal is simple. Help you become a better leader, and I'm doing that by taking you along my journey as I become one too. So it's great to have you here. And today I got a great guest lineup, great show lineup for you. And we're not necessarily talking about leadership, hardcore, like motivating people, inspiring them, doing efficient organizational structures or any of all that stuff. We're talking about neuroscience today. Why is that important? Kind of, as I said in my intro, gives you the competitive advantage, stuff like that, right? But truly, you need to be at the top of your game as a leader in order to help the rest of your team, help your organization. And that's what we're talking about today. We're focusing in on you and your performance today. And you can take the lessons from this podcast episode and apply it to anything, really. If you play sports, you can apply it to sports. Your home, you can apply it to home. You can apply it to volunteering duties, whatever. However you want to apply this, you can apply it because it will help you become just a better leader, a better person, whatever, better at everything and everything that you do. So that's why this is important. Before I dive into introducing the guest today, we are in December, folks, 2019 at the launch of this podcast episode. Maybe you're listening to it now. Maybe you're listening to it January. No big deal. I totally understand. But the point of the matter is, end of 2019 is here. What are you going to do differently for 2020? If you are not achieving the things that you've set out to achieve in 2019, what are you going to do in 2020 that's different? Because if you don't, then you're basically being insane. And you're going to go, Scott, what are you talking about? I'm not insane. I'm perfectly fine. Well, the definition of insanity is constantly doing the same thing, yet expecting a different result. If you're constantly doing the same thing, trying to achieve your goals, but you're not getting a different result, then you're acting insane. So why don't you come check out the Power Goals program for the new year? Why don't you come and check out the Power Goals program and see if that could be a fit for you? Because I think it could. I think this program will help you set a plan, figure out what your goals are, figure out how you're going to achieve them, set a plan to achieve them, and figure out the ways to stick to that plan. So swing by movingforleadership.com/power and check out the program. I bring you through the 5 steps that I've developed that will help you along your way. Okay? So let's stop being insane and let's get some achievements in the book, shall we? And I can help you. Just go to movingforleadership.com/power. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about my guest, Michele, shall I? She is the founder and CEO of her company, Nectar Consulting Incorporated. She's the co-author of the best-selling book, Breakthrough Healing. She works with executives and entrepreneurs. She's got more than 25 years experience in strategic business savvy, and she's an expert at enhancing capacity of leaders to build high-performance teams, which exponentially increases bottom line results. Now, how is that not something that you want to hear about, right? And that's exactly why I have her on the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my discussion all about the neuroscience of success with Michele, Molitor. Michele, welcome to Moving Forward Leadership. It's great to have you here
Thanks for having me on, Scott. I'm glad to be here.
So before we dive into the nuts and bolts of the discussion, I need to know something. Are you a hockey fan by chance?
I know not a thing about hockey other than they use sticks on the ice.
Me being a Canadian, obviously I'm a diehard hockey fan. But the reason why I ask you is because you're going to be episode number 96. And that is my number. So congratulations. You got my jersey.
I win the luckies. Not soccer, hockey number. Yay!
All right, let's get to some serious business. So the first thing in my mind is we're going to be talking about neuroscience for success for leaders out there. So I focus on 3 aspects of leadership: leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. Now, today, I expect we're going to be more into the leading yourself bit with neuroscience and mindset and all that stuff, but it does impact the other 2 for sure.
Absolutely.
My first thing is how the heck do you even become an expert in this field? What's the backstory to that one?
Well, it's a long and winding road, Scott. So in my former career, I was a creative director in web development. Loved that work until I didn't anymore, right? I had moved from Atlanta to San Francisco at the height of the .com boom. We were going to IPO. Went to work for this schwanky, hot startup company doing web development. And the market crashed instead. And yet we toiled on, and ultimately I ended up getting bullied out of my job. I had 2 gentlemen who I had hired who really didn't like working for a woman. And they made it abundantly clear to me. Ultimately, I got fired. And it was really devastating to me. Crushed my confidence. My self-esteem was kind of in the toilet for a while. And it led me to coaching to help me figure out what to do next. And so in the process of being coached, I really fell in love with it and realized my true life's calling and passion to help people in this particular way. So I went on to get trained and certified and started my own company, Nectar Consulting, and have been doing it now for over 18 years. And in the process of that, I've really gotten into the neuroscience, the physics of it all, because once upon a time I used to have a belief of, well, coaching is too woo-woo. Corporate America won't buy it. And then I realized, no, they are. And they're spending lots of money on it. And I really needed to find my way through that to understand how to really articulate it more effectively so I could really stand behind it completely. And so that's my deep dive into the neuroscience aspects of it. And there's tons of studies and research out there now that really support the work of not only coaching, but this other methodology that I use called rapid transformational therapy. And essentially, we're getting in at a subconscious level and helping people rewire their neural pathways in their brains through thinking new thoughts, coming up with new ways of seeing the world, new perspectives, but getting at the limiting beliefs at a subconscious level and eliminating them, essentially rewiring them, transforming them so that there's no longer an emotional charge around those old beliefs of, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't, who am I? No one's going to pay attention or listen to me. How should I be leading this team, etc.? And so when you eliminate those old beliefs and replace them with, of course I can, of course I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm an expert at what I do, that shifts your very biochemistry and has you show up differently. Right. And we can geek out on the energetics of it too, if you want, but that hopefully that kind of gives you a synopsis of
no, it totally
how
does.
I got here.
Then and then some in a good way, not in a bad way. Don't worry. But it's interesting because you highlighted the fact how you got bullied out of your job and fired, and to me that just seemed like the catalyst of you going down this road and becoming becoming an expert. Because I would imagine that the whole research, not only was it based around getting a job and earn a living, but also probably some self-healing to get rid of your own personal limiting beliefs and self-doubts and all that jazz. So not only was it a business venture, but a personal journey on top of that, which if I have learned anything in doing this podcast is those make strongest people out there, the best coaches, the people with the best interviews and everything in between. So good. Kudos to you.
It truly was, I'll admit it, I'm a learning junkie, Scott. Can I have another workshop, please?
You should
So
see
I'm
the
always,
stack of books I have right there.
oh, I got a whole library. I got hundreds and
Yeah.
hundreds of books on personal development, professional development, coaching, psychology, you name it. It's just, I read neuroscience books for fun. Okay. Sorry. But yeah, it truly has been a journey and a passion to not only be the best human being that I can be, but to help others get out of their own way, as I say, get the junk out of their trunk that's holding them back and allow them to shine more fully, to step into their expertise and let their voice be heard. Because it's interesting, because oftentimes it can be the smallest of things that leave such an indelible mark on our subconscious that then
Right.
creates that underlying belief that we're not good enough, we're not something enough. And so in my own path to eliminate the junk in my trunk, I've learned a lot of really valuable lessons and tools, and now able to give that to my clients in my work with them. So it's really powerful.
This is all great. We've basically kind of skirted why and how you got into it, and you've really highlighted subliminally, why this is important. But I really want to dive into the why now, and why leaders should actually care about neuroscience from a leadership aspect. So, what do you have to say there?
Sure. No, that's a great question, because how you show up as a leader has an impact. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the science, right? So if you boil us all down, Scott, we're energy, right? If you boil it all the way down, we're just electrons flying around, neutrons flying around in the world. So how we think impacts our energy. And if we are thinking small about ourselves, then our energy literally contracts, right? We have realm of energy around us that it expands out from us several feet, right? So if we were talking in person, right, our energies would have an impact on each other. And so when you're showing up as a leader, confident and strong, grounded in who you are, your energy expands, right? And that expanded energy is that intangible thing that people sense, but they can't put their finger on. So have you ever walked into a boardroom, right? A meeting full of people, and you can feel the tension in the air, right? Something bad's going to happen or something good's going to happen. You can just feel it, right? That's our energy. And that's a part of your brain called your mirror neurons, right? I call them your little emotional antennae, right? And they pick up on the energy of other people. We're hardwired naturally to sense that, and it helps us move through the world safely. Right. And so when you learn more about your own energy, your own emotions, your emotional intelligence, it allows you to show up in this bigger, more expanded presence. And you can use that presence for good or for bad, right? I always say the biggest energy in the room wins, good or bad. So as a leader, knowing how to wield your influence, your impact at this energetic level is key. And it's a very subtle nuance that a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration.
So what I'm hearing from you is leaders should care, because when they are able to basically harness their energy through neuroscience, then they can take that and influence the others, whether that's in their team, their organization, whatever have you.
Yes, exactly.
Now here's where rubber hits the road right now. How are we going to go about doing it? How are leaders going to use this neuroscience to their advantage so they can get their mindset straight? They can get rid of all this baggage. They can think of themselves in that positive aspect so that it flows out of them to become intoxicating to other people, right?
Yeah, you can be toxic or intoxicating. Right?
In a good way.
Right. Well, it can go either way, right? If you don't have your stuff handled, right? If you haven't taken the time to do the inner work to look at, wow, what baggage am I carrying around? How is that getting in the way of how I show up for others, how I react to others? If you're not mindful of that, it can go south very quickly. And, we've seen many organizations where the toxicity flows from the head of the organization down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the converse is true. When the people at the top of an organization are being mindful of who they are and how they're showing up and the impact that their words and their actions are having, then it creates a more positive culture. So how do they get there? So the first part is noticing the inner dialogue that you're having with yourself. Is it above the line or below the line? So above the line is positive emotions, right? You're neutral, you're happy, you're content, you're ecstatic, you're joyful, you're, radiant. Below the line is I'm uncomfortable, I'm dissatisfied, I'm crabby, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm despondent, right? So it goes in both directions. And every level of emotion truly vibrates at a different frequency, right? There's a great book called Power versus Force, and it goes into great detail about the energetics of our emotions. And so the more you understand your own emotions, the more you can be above the line, okay? So to do that, it's a matter of understanding what are your hot buttons. What are the triggers? What are the things that take you down the rabbit hole, so to speak? And then if it's not something that you can overcome on your own, to forgive, forget, let go of, then seek the help of a professional, whether that's a coach, a therapist, a hypnotherapist. There's a lot of different ways that can look like. So the work that I do is this really unique combination that brings together both coaching and hypnotherapy. I call it rapid rewiring because it enables me to help my clients go to that deeper level, that subconscious level where 95% of your thinking occurs at, right? 5% is at this conscious level, and the rest of your subconscious and unconscious mind is that 95%. And if you've got old beliefs, old habits that don't serve you anymore, that are living hardwired in your subconscious programming, the only way to get at them is through subconscious work, right? So while talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy has its place, as does coaching, I found that hypnotherapy is actually really powerful because it enables us to get at those limiting beliefs much more quickly and then reprogram them. And then I bring in coaching on top of that to add new strategies for success into place, allowing folks to make these quantum leaps in 30 to 90 days versus 6 or 12 months or years of talk therapy.
You've kind of said a few things which I find really interesting. So we go right back to the beginning there. What I'm hearing is mindfulness is definitely a powerful tool in taking care of yourself and how they can use neuroscience to their advantage, just simply being mindful. The last part that you talked about, I really liked, and when you were talking about different options that people can use, because not
one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Took the words out of my mouth, which I couldn't find. One size doesn't fit all. Not everything works for everyone. So I really like those different options for people out there. What I'd like to know is some leaders out there, they just have this hard time. And not to say they're not good people or good leaders, but they're just really emotional for good and sometimes for bad. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for those people who have a hard time controlling their emotions, especially when it's like the bad times, when it's the stressful situations, they've just got told news that they don't like, something negative's happening, and they just kind of, flip their lid? Because in my mind, this is the time you need to be to calmness as a leader. You need to instill calmness in the organization so that people can get focused. But if you have a hard time as a leader remaining calm, and they flip their lid for a bit, come back a few hours later to completely calm, well, you just lost that time. For those leaders out there, what advice do you have for them in controlling mainly their negative emotions?
Sure. That's a great question, Scott, because that's a tricky thing, right? We all have things that will have us flip our lids, right? Good,
the
bad,
right button, right?
Yes, if you find the right button. And so that's why having practices of whether it be mindfulness or prayer or exercise in different ways, shapes, and forms to help you literally on a daily basis, a weekly basis, get stress out of your body, right? Emotions create chemical reactions in your brain that then flood your body. So if you're having a stressful day, your body is coursing with cortisol and adrenaline, right? If you take it all the way back to your amygdala, which is a part of your brain that is your fight or flight mechanism, right? I like to call her Amy. Amy's that little lizard lady living in your limbic brain.
I like it.
Right? And Amy just wants to keep you safe and alive and on the planet. And so the stressors that we're facing during the day, Amy thinks, oh my God, there's a saber-toothed tiger running after us. We better run, right? Your body fills with adrenaline and cortisol. And if we don't do something to allow a release of that excess cortisol and adrenaline, if you're constantly running in that mode, then eventually you get to adrenal fatigue and your body just shuts down. You're like, sorry, I got no gas in the tank and I can't do anything, right? So being mindful of how you're allowing yourself to create these stress releases as you go throughout your week. So when you get to those moments when that red button has been pushed, you're able to take a deep breath and pause and respond versus reacting, right? It's the reaction that gets everybody in trouble, right? And so having the state of mind, the self-awareness to go, oh, wait a minute, let me just take a breath here before I say something I'll regret, right? So it's not easy and it's simple.
No, I hear what you're saying. So basically, what people need to do is find those stress relievers that they can incorporate in their daily routines so that when these occurrences occur, you're not actually at your high stress point. And that actually enables you to deal with the situation better, because if you were already stressed out, this is just going to be exponentially even worse. However, if you reduce your stress level already, then you can actually take that moment, which I like to refer to as the condor moment, where you basically like smoke a cigar, relax, and then actually look at the situation and move forward from that. So awesome advice. Love it. When leaders are out there and they're dealing with their baggage, right? The things that are holding them back. Maybe some of them go into, I'm not good enough for this team, or I'm not good enough for that promotion that people say I deserve, or I'm not too sure, or the person, one of my subordinates is better to me. Oh, I've dealt with that one before. What is your advice there in dealing with this baggage and getting people to actually look on the bright side of things and moving forward with their abilities and basically lives?
Yeah, no, that's a very common issue that I see a lot, Scott. Having that inner voice of self-doubt that says, oh, I'm not good enough, or who am I, or I don't know that I can, or I'm not quite sure. It's that lack of confidence that holds us back. Even though there may be this really great confident facade that you're putting out there to the world, underneath that, it's the, oh, I'm not quite sure, the kind of biting of your nails, kind of tension that goes on within you. And so the most simple way that I can advise people to deal with this is by starting with telling yourself that you are enough, that you are capable, that you can do this, that you are brilliant, talented, strong, whatever that missing piece is for you. Tell yourself that you are that. I am enough. I am capable. I am confident in myself. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Like literally repeat it to yourself throughout the day, or sing it to yourself as you're driving to work, right? Pick some power songs that inspire you and have you believe in yourself, and listen to those as you're riding the train to work, whatever it might be for you, right? You know, in my work as a hypnotherapist, one of the things I do is I create a customized recording for my clients based on everything that we've talked about and their particular issue. So let's say it's I'm not enough is the underlying root cause of the lack of confidence that they're dealing with. During our session, I create this custom recording where I'm instilling new empowering beliefs. You are enough. You always have been. You always will be. Nothing can ever change that. And I have them listen to that recording every day for 21 to 30 days. Because your brain likes repetition, right? So the more you think a thought, the more true it becomes for you. So if you're constantly telling yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, well, that becomes your reality. But the converse is true too. So I am enough. I'm good enough. I'm great. I'm really good at what I do. I'm talented. And so as they listen to this recording that I've made for them every night, as they go to sleep, as they're falling off from beta brainwaves to alpha brainwaves to delta brainwaves, that messaging drops into their subconscious because your brain's always listening. And that's when it literally starts to build new neural pathways in their brain. The more you think a thought, the stronger those connections become in your brain. So the more you tell yourself something, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough, even though you don't believe it at first, keep repeating it to yourself, right? And over time, you'll wake up one day and go, oh yeah, I am enough. Why did I ever doubt myself? And it's just like that. Sometimes it happens really quickly. Sometimes it takes a couple days, a couple weeks. It just depends on the levels of trauma that someone has been through that gave them those limiting beliefs in the first place. But that's the simplest bottom line. There's, more to it, but yeah.
Oh, I imagine so. You geeked out there for a second, talking about different waves and stuff. I was like,
Will.
whoa, all right, she's getting into it. But no, seriously, it's all great stuff. And I think it's very useful for the listener there, because we all have baggage. Even the most optimistic people have baggage, right?
Yeah.
And the most checked out people, whatever, everybody has baggage, and they'll always have limiting beliefs from time to time. So if we just have those strategies of getting rid of them so that we can put our best us forward to do what we are set out to do, that's what's important.
Absolutely. And I really want to underscore something here for your listeners, Scott, because as you said, everybody's got stuff. We've all got limiting beliefs. We've all had things that have happened to us some way, shape, or form in our lives that create these beliefs and self-doubt about ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. It's natural. Right? And we've been taught societally that, you have to be strong and don't cry and, put on a brave face. A brave face isn't always required. And so when you allow yourself to feel your feelings and to let them go and move through them, it'll help you move forward more quickly and more powerfully.
So I'd like to do a little shift in the conversation now, away from just the leader themselves, but how can they use this to their advantage for their team and their subordinates and the people around them that they work with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we said earlier, how you show up as a leader creates an impact, right? Energetically, how you're showing up creates a sensation for other people. They might not know it. They might not be able to put their finger on it. But if you are a leader who has a positive attitude, has a calm demeanor, you're going to create that calm demeanor for those who are working around you. And so that's one aspect of just positively impacting your team. Another way to think about this is being mindful of the words that you use. How are you talking to your team? How are you speaking to them? Are you being condescending? Are you talking down to them? Are you using a lot of angry, negative language towards them? Or are you cheering them on and giving them constructive feedback along the way? That was great. However, let's tweak this a little bit over here, Scott, so we can improve that, right? So giving them both encouragement and constructive feedback. I'm not saying be Pollyanna, but giving them both in equal portions so they see and hear that they are doing well, and they see and hear when they need to make some changes for improvement.
That's definitely really great stuff. I guess the final thing that I would like for us to dive into is, you call this talk neuroscience of success. In your mind, how do leaders go about defining success, and how do they use this ultimately for that?
Everyone gets to define their own success. And that can look like, what does that look like financially? What does that look like emotionally? What does that look like as far as balance goes? Right? All of these things play in to what success looks like for each person, because it's their whole life that is involved in that, right? You don't just leave your home life at the door when you walk in the office. You might not talk about your home life when you walk in the office, but whatever's happening there is having an emotional impact. And that is part of the shift that shows up in who you are, the energy of who you are, and how you move through your work each day. And so being mindful of what kind of impact do you want to have? What's the intention that you want to set for yourself, for your work, for your team, for your organization each day, each month, each year. So thinking about that, as a leader, we're called to look ahead, to strategize, and to think, okay, what's going to be the most effective path forward, both for me and for the team and for the organization, right? So through that lens, it's important to take all these more subtle nuances into account, because not everyone on your team might be thinking this way. I do a lot of work with public entities, public organizations, and there's an interesting mindset there that's very different than you'll find in private companies, privately held companies. And it's oftentimes civil servants will do just what they need to do to get by. Not everybody's that way. I'm not dissing civil servants. They do great work for us. And it's a culture, right? Don't make me look bad by doing too much, right?
Yeah.
Versus private organizations, which is very different, was how can you get ahead? How can you get ahead? So there's these different mindsets based on the culture of an organization that you as a leader need to be aware of. And then from that, determine how do you want to lead your team forward in a good way to achieve those results, but lift everyone up along the way, right? One of my favorite quotes from John F. Kennedy is, "A rising tide lifts all boats." And so how do you create that atmosphere that helps create that rising tide?
Awesome, Michele. This has been a super fascinating, I would say, not even interesting, fascinating discussion. As we wind down here, just got a couple last questions for you. Not the final one, but the next one is, according to you, Michele, what makes a great leader?
What makes a great leader? Someone who knows who they are, who understands the compelling why. Why do they get out of bed every day? What's their passion and purpose that they're bringing to their organization? And they allow their passion and their core values, their talents and expertise guide them in doing their work, which then intrinsically motivates and inspires their team to want to do good work as well.
Awesome. Love it. So the final question is, how can people find you? How can they follow you? Share and part what it is you have going on. Feel free to give yourself a shameless plug. I know you got a book out there, so feel free to take 30 seconds or a minute to do so.
Sure. So folks can always find me at nectarconsulting.com, Nectar consulting.com. Learn more about my work as a executive coach and rapid rewire expert. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those good places. My book is called Breakthrough Healing. It's co-authored with several other folks about different healing modalities that are outside of big pharma influence. And you can find that on Amazon. All the profits of that go to the Children's Hospital. And if y'all are curious about how you might get rid of some of the junk in your trunk that's holding you back as a leader and increase your confidence, feel free to check out my website and book a complimentary discovery call with me there. We'll spend 30 to 45 minutes on the phone together, and you can tell me more about what's going on for you in a confidential setting. And then we can see how you might take advantage of some rapid rewiring to get rid of some of those old beliefs that no longer serve you and make some quantum leaps forward in your success. So I'd be happy to chat with folks anytime.
Awesome, Michelle. Thanks for the audience as always. It's easy for you folks. Just go to movingforwardleadership.com/9696 and the links are all there for you in the show notes. Michelle, again, thanks for coming out to Moving for Leadership podcast. It's great to have you here discussing a super important topic in my mind in basically, how leaders can best use neuroscience to be successful, to lead their teams better, most importantly, lead themselves better. And I like that analogy of getting rid of the junk in the trunk. And you know what? If a leader's out there and is like, yeah, I got some junk in my trunk, but I feel shy about it, you know what? Don't. It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's too much of that stigma around mental health, and really, it's not even necessarily a mental health issue. Sometimes people think it is, but it's not, because we all go through it. We all have things, limiting beliefs and whatnot, that we just need, a little bit of help to get rid of, to show that those beliefs are actually false, so that we can push forward and lead better. So thanks again for coming out, talking about this great subject to me, and most importantly, the audience.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's been a real pleasure to share all this with you, and I hope it's been of value to all your listeners. So thanks for tuning in.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.